All right, let's continue, guys. Today I'm going to mainly talk about the so-called yield curve. Uh, it's kind of getting a good idea about understanding what yield curve means. Yeah. The so-called, at least, treasury yield curve is basically a graph of uh, pure discount bonds, horizontal axis being maturity, and something like that. Okay, anywhere from 1 week to 30 years. Right. Basically, what we're going to discuss today is what does that mean, you know, or how do we think this sort of shape is happening? How does it change over time? Guys, if you're going to converse about stuff, you're more than welcome to do so, but please do it outside. All right. I don't particularly care, but you have your friends. Some of them are actually here to listen to me. Maybe not all of them, but I'm hoping some of them are. There are many theories of how interest rates are determined. And your chapter talks about some of them. One of them we briefly kind of started last time. It's called expectations theory. It basically says if the market thinks that shorter term interests are going to be higher in the future, the longer term yields are going to be higher as well. Or if the shorter term interest rates are going to be lower, at least for a brief time, longer term interest rates could be lower. And that all goes through the so-called um, forward interest rates. Expectation theory thinks of forward interest rate as the interest rates that market is expecting to happen in the future. And they pretty much derive all of that. Example, suppose 1 year interest rates are 4%. And for whatever reason, you think 1 year interest rates are going to be 6% next year. This is the expectation. And you need funding for 2 years. Okay. You know, you could either borrow for 2 years, or you could borrow for 1 year and roll it over next year. Since outcome-wise, these are exactly the same in the sense that they allow you to fund your operation for 2 years. Whatever you do, you're going to use the method that gives you the least cost. Obviously, you're not the only smart one in the market. That means there needs to be some sort of equilibrium, right? So they need to cost the same. So given these expectations, if you borrow 1 year and roll, let's say you're going to borrow 1 million. The first year you're going to pay 4%, which means at the end of 1 year, let's assume there's no intermediate payments. You're just going to roll it over or refinance it. You're going to owe, or you're going to have to refinance 1,040,000. But next year, this is year one, and that would be okay. The alternative is to borrow at 2 years. Two-year term. Let's say, for the sake of argument, the 2 year rate is 5%. That means it's going to cost me 1 million bucks times 1 plus 5%, but squared. Why? Because I'm going to pay interest on it for 2 years. And if we actually did this calculation, um, I can do it in my head, but I'm not going to. The difference is small, but uh, the 2 year rate is a little bit lower, right? Of course, or let me change this. Let's make this 4.7%. Just to oh, 962. Assuming that you're fixed on that 6% expectation next year, I shouldn't even have to ask you which one you would pick as a method to finance your operation, right? Obviously, you would pick the year two, 2 year funding. If we take those expectations as God-given word, everybody's gonna go for the 2 year. That means the demand for 2 year loans is going up. When something is demanded, what happens to the price of that? It goes up. So that means if there is such an imbalance, market forces are going to force the 2 year rates up. Since people are not borrowing 1 year anymore and rolling, the 1 year rates are going to come down. So there's going to be some equilibrium somewhere. Okay? And the actual rate, we can figure it out. I'm not worried about what that rate is, but in this case, uh, let me see, 5, 520.